Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show. Today, we're staying in Australia. We're going to Melbourne, and we're going to talk about a very interesting subject. And one question that I got to ask you, do you know that you can attract your soul client? Do you actually know what is a soul client? And how can you powerfully come up and have create this attraction that will lead you to your soul client? My guest today will lead you through that and share some tips and knowledge about it. And I hope you have your paper, you have your pen, because there's going to be a lot of learning today, and I don't want you to miss out, because what you're going to write down, hopefully you're going to apply later on, because that's the idea of the show. So this show is for you. This show is for you to grow and to go to the next level of your greatness. So you probably know me by now. My name is Mireille Tilekima. You know me as the Greatness Engineer, and I'm tuning in from Perth in Australia. So let's not waste too much time. I will let you discover my guest today, and she will have the opportunity to introduce herself, because I think she can do it better than me. So let's go. Let's all get ready. Let us know where you're watching from, and get ready to. If you are watching live, come in and share your insight, ask question, because we really want it to be interactive if you are in the room. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to be back with my guest today. Another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show, the show that is brought to you by the Brainz Global Leadership Organization.
Feel is important is if you just look at the word compassion, when it's behavior, it's something that can be learned, and it is something that we can embody through habits and through our daily actions.
Like, what can I do now with this all experiences that that I have? And for me, it's knowing who I am, believing in myself, and trust, and have confidence that yes, this has happened.
To get this idea that if we interject this wisdom intentionally, I call them needle movers. It's the needle mover that's missing.
I was getting my first computer when I went into undergrad, right? And so I think that stick with what you're passionate about. And if you're passionate about learning technology, you're in a great space, because technology touches every industry.
Hello, good evening, Krystal. Welcome to the Greatness Engineering Hour show. So people, now you know who is my guest. My guest is Krystal Hille. She's tuning in from Melbourne, Australia. So Krystal, welcome. And please, let us know who you are, so that, the audience get to know you.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be on your show, and I can't wait for what I believe is going to be an amazing conversation. So my name is Krystal Hille. I am the founder of Hill House Publishing, and I'm a soul leadership mentor and embodiment coach. And really my passion is to bring conscious leaders together to share their message, elevate their message in a bigger way. So I create multi-author books and bring thought leaders together to give them the opportunity to come to a global scale. And really what I love doing, like my area really is humanity. And that's a huge topic. Like I'm so passionate to bring more compassion into the world, to enable those who have walked their walk to empower and awaken humanity into deeper levels of sovereignty and connection.
So that's very powerful and very spiritual at the same time, and it's important to know that spirituality is actually part of everything that we do, even as entrepreneurs. And we're gonna dig a little bit deep into that. But let's say hello to our audience here. So we have Pat. Pat is tuning in from Johannesburg in South Africa. Welcome, Pat. Thanks for tuning in. And then we have Lillian. Lillian is, tuning in as well. Yes, great woman connecting. Well done. Yes, we are happy to have you, Lillian, and we know that you're gonna have a lot of input into it. So today we're going to talk about a very interesting subject: crafting your signature story to attract your soul aligned client. But I think we need to first step back and really get to understand all those terms, especially soul aligned clients. So what is special about this term? Because we, normally we talk about clients, or we talk about, our niche, or our but I've never actually heard about, soul aligned client. Can you let us know a little bit more what it is?
Thank you. Yes. So for me, being soul aligned means firstly, we need to be aligned to our own soul. We need to reconnect to the essence of who we are. I just call it the soul because, you can call it, like we can call it being aligned to our higher self, being in alignment with our essence, our having uncovered our core message, our core values. And I'll talk more about that when we come into the signature story. So when I talk about attracting a soul aligned client, it's a client who really is in alignment with our values, who's resonating, like if we're talking spiritually, this person is resonating in a same frequency, in a similar way, or we have walked the walk that they're on. Like it's almost like a parallel journey. We always say we teach what we need to know, and we attract the people who are coming behind us who are also walking in the similar path and a similar theme. So for me, those are soul aligned clients.
And it's good to know, because but the thing is, when you meet people, especially when you do a project, how do you get to get those vibration from the client, because it's not visible? So how
That's right.
do you have like special tips? Because when you just meet somebody, it's not obvious.
So true. I think we can all reflect back on when was the last time you hired a coach, be that a business coach, be that even a naturopath, or if you needed, imagine the last time you needed somebody for yourself. How did you make that decision? How did you know that out of the many, I'm going to go with business coaching because, I think we are all into being entrepreneurs and engineering greatness. So it's about how did you know which business coach is the right one for you? They might all talk the same language. They might all sell the same thing. I'm giving you clarity on your message or whatever it might be, but the way they communicate that, and then the story, the backstory that made them passionate about this particular subject, that's unique to everyone. And that is like our soul signature, so to speak. And that's what I'm tuning into very consciously when I'm looking at a new business coach. I'm listening to them on several levels. I'm listening to what they're saying, but more importantly, I'm listening to how they're saying it and how I feel about what they're saying. Does it deeply touch my heart? Does it resonate within me? Or is it like, oh yeah, that sounds really interesting, but that's it. It stays in the head.
So it's basically like a love at first sight. If you can, if I can, to find a comparison, is that you see somebody is really you start to really feel those emotions, this emotion that is really strong, and then you just say, okay, I go for it. But how do we? I mean, I'm still puzzled about is there any technique to because obviously as an entrepreneur, as the person looking for something, you know what you're looking for. So how do you bring this signal, so that you can create this alignment or this connection or this rapport with the
Yes.
client or with the coach, if we're talking about coaching?
Absolutely. So it for me, it really is about intuition and recognizing what intuition actually is. For me, intuition is like one of my mentors used to say, you just know that you know without knowing why you know it. It's that moment, the first 3 seconds before the logical mind kicks in and talks you out of something, or the fears kick in, or the patterns kick in. So, but how do we develop that is sometimes challenging, isn't it? Especially when we're used to being very much in our head, we're very busy. And the way I say it is to really take those 5 minutes every morning and just do mindfulness breathing. It's like we need to, in order to hear the intuitive voice, in order to strengthen that muscle of just knowing, we need to slow down. When we're in our head, we can't hear it because there's too much going on and the interference is too strong. So it's like we need to tap into our heart. And in order to hear the voice of the heart, or on top of that, then the voice of the intuition is to slow down, to practice breathing, to practice being in silence, to practice catching those glimpses of that, when we know, oh, that's it. And sometimes, it's like people call it a gut instinct as well. And you call it falling in love at first sight. There's just something, right? Like it's almost like a puzzle piece, like something just kind of clicks into place and you feel like you know that person. And if you're the person, the entrepreneur, the coach who wants to acquire clients that are in alignment, that are not going to give you problems, that are going to be just easygoing, and you just feel like you're becoming best friends, then you need to, or what I've discovered is we need to let them into our lives. We need to show them who we are as a person so that they can identify themselves in our story.
And what's very interesting is that you're talking about silence, to listening to ourselves and go deep. But yet, when we talk about marketing, which is what people tell us to do as an entrepreneur, to market so that we can find a client, it's all about noise. So noise, being visible, being in people's face. And so how do you reconcile the two?
Yeah, I think the silence comes so that we can attune ourselves to our inner voice, so that we can attune to our intuition, so that we know when there's an alignment to a client or to somebody we want to hire. And also, in the silence, our intuition, our higher self, our soul can tell us what we need to share with the world. So it's like crafting the message in the silence. And then, of course, when we're then going out, the message is clear for us and we can just share it with the world. But doing so in an authentic way, because I find a lot of the time people are still putting on personas because they still think they need to be something that they're not. When all they need to do is just be themselves, just drop the masks, drop the personas and be ourselves. And that in itself, you mentioned, entrepreneurship is such a spiritual journey, because in order to get to that place where we can just be ourselves, in front of the camera, when we're getting our message out, it takes radical self-acceptance.
And that's the key, accept, where we are,
Yes.
and then go out as we are. I think it's the big step here. So we have a comment from a few comments actually, from Liliane. For me, sometimes it's have a feel right or wrong. The gut feeling is so important, and it explains why most connection fail. Because there is soul connection, it's not easy to work toward this kind of connection, and I think that's sometimes the gap that we have. We don't really make the difference between the connection, just a normal connection, and the soul connection. And I think that's where the silence, going inside comes in, because that's when we can really make the difference. And then Pat is saying, loving the session so far, and a lot resonates. Yes, I know, it's really, really inspiring, isn't it? And it also takes radical questioning of oneself. Yes.
Yes.
And that's exactly, what I was saying, is that, there's so much going on outside, and there's so, we have so much information about how to sell, how to, connect with people, that we lose ourselves into all of this, and we forget to be ourselves and go.
It's so easy. Yeah.
So
I remember when I used to do that, like in the even up, like I would get so overwhelmed, because I would look at, okay, so how is somebody else presenting themselves? How are they selling their services? Oh, I could do that too. Oh, I could do that too. And then it gets so overwhelming with all of this information. And so the soul aligned way is to take a step back from all of this and to go within and saying, okay, what am I really passionate about? And why am I really passionate about that? And then from that place, what gives me joy? How would I like to share my services with the world? There's some people who love being on a podcast. And so that's a really great way of getting the message across. Or they love just doing their own lives. Others hate it. Some people just love the one-on-one connections, and they go to lots of networking events. Others just do direct messaging. So there's so many different methods. And I feel like we're moving into a time where there's no more one-fits-all approach, because that's out of alignment. That is not in, there's no soul in there. It's just, the cookie cutter approach doesn't work anymore. It feels inauthentic, and people will feel that. We're not authentic and haven't really asked ourselves these radical questions. People will feel that. Yeah.
And that's fair to say, is, we just copying other people. We see somebody who we think is successful, and we say, okay, we just have to copy to do the same. But sometimes it just doesn't work. So we'll take the opportunity to have a break, and we'll come back and continue this engaging conversation, talking about crafting your signature story to attract your soul client. So for those just joining us, my guest today is Krystal Hille, and she is based in Melbourne, Australia. And we're having a pretty interesting discussion, and I think it's going to help you, especially if you're an entrepreneur, to see the spiritual impact that what the spiritual impact has, on your business, and on how you communicate with your clients. So don't go anywhere. We will be back in a few minutes. So we are back. We are back with Krystal, and there's a long comment from Lillian here. So sometimes it's also just sharing your pain with others because someone needs to hear the same pain from someone else's mouth. So unfortunately, today we turn, to put out only the good face. Yes, and I hope things, change slowly with Sue coaching. So yes, it's and you're right, Liliane. We always want to, it's like everybody's perfect now, so nobody has, any flaw. So how do you think we should come out to really get, this soul connection that you're talking about? Is, how should we come with our story, because there's a way to do that. You just can't, come just randomly. How do you think we should put our stories out and get, this right connection, the soul connection that you're talking about?
So I think values have a lot to do with my starting point. Sometimes, and what are my values is coming from Dr. John DeMartini talks about our voids create our values. And what he means by that is whatever was missing or perceived as being absent as a child, for example, is then something we place a lot of value on and we will seek. So in his example, when he was a child, he had a learning disability and a speech impediment. And so today, he is a global thought leader. He teaches thousands of people every year, and he has written many, many books. So it's interesting, like he goes from one to the other. So I invite everyone to look at, okay, what was missing in my childhood? What were my voids, and how have they become my values, the things that I now stand for? Because when we can clearly articulate what we stand for and why, we're really drawing our reader close. It creates divisions. Either, oh yeah, that resonates, that's me too. We want that kind of reaction, or oh no, that's not for me. But when we're really clear, it creates, we're giving our reader the opportunity to self-identify whether or not they're our soul-aligned client. And I'll give you a few more examples. I know a lot of women in particular who have been raped and who become sexual therapists or tantra teachers or embodiment coaches to help, because that was their journey. Like for me, one of my themes was I was bullied as a child. And I felt always the outsider. I had this spiritual awareness and it wasn't mainstream at all. And so I really recreated in my life situations and circumstances where I was always the outsider. From the point of, I'm German, so I moved to England. Now I was the outsider because I was the foreigner. I'm now in Australia. I'm still I don't feel like the outsider in this way anymore because everything is so global now. But when I was at university in England, I really felt like the outsider. I was also a lot older than they. And so that created a void of connection and community. And that became really, really important to me. And so what I do now in my work, I bring together conscious entrepreneurs to co-create and collaborate on books together. And so that's just one way in which this void has become a really strong value. And I'm really, as a coach also, connection is so important to me. First and foremost, the connection to ourselves. And then how with that, when we're fully connected to ourselves, when we've released our personas and we just are who we are in our authentic essence, to then connect from that place is incredibly powerful. So that's my voids and values. And that's how I would start any signature story, really digging deep, like what are the themes in my life and how have I translated them into what I do now?
And it's sometimes something that we don't do, and we just keep going, and we don't really take time to pause and think about those voids, those gaps that we have, and how we can in a way capitalize on that and fill those gaps, or create the bridge that can close the gap that's been there for quite some time. So I mean, you said that you're doing it with your with your offers. So do you when you select the offer, how, I mean, what's the process? Is it um because you meet several people and you probably interact with several people. How do you know this is my sole client or sole offer, and this one, no, it's not it's not really me? And the second part of the question, how do you put everybody together when you have this connection? How do you create this soul connection between the offer when you work on a book?
Yeah, it's a look. I don't approach this with my mind. That's for sure. I'm so clear in the message I'm putting out there that I know those people who are resonating are already soul aligned. And then it's just a question of, how do they have the right message, the right story? But there is an alignment. Like, are they the right fit for this particular book, or are they for a different book? That becomes the question, because otherwise they wouldn't even say yes to me and engage in a conversation with me. Yeah.
Okay. So how do they come, how do you help them to come really with a powerful story? Because I think that's really, the essence of your work is really, take those stories and make sure that they come really powerfully and really capture, all the essence of those gaps that you were talking about. So how do you do that?
So you're asking, how do I carve out the best story from
The best
from the
story from
authors?
them, yeah,
Yes,
from the
yes.
author, because they can have different part of their life that they want to talk about. So how do you come up with saying, okay, this is really how I think it's going to be powerful for you to just come out in this book?
So there's two ways. One of the questions I always ask is, if your life was a movie, what would it be called? So we can look at movie titles and see, okay, what is the theme? What are the themes of my story? And we've had some really interesting ones. Like one of my favorite ones is 7 Concussions to Enlightenment. It's a beautiful, because I have a lady in my book who literally had 7 concussions because the
Wow.
universe was smacking her in the head because she needed to learn a certain lesson, and it just took that long, because sometimes we don't learn it the first time, or most of the time we don't learn it the first time when the universe whispers to us. So we carve out the theme. And then each book has a title. So the current book I'm putting together is called Intuitive Living. And so what I say to them is, look at your life through the lens of intuition and find those defining moments where you haven't listened to intuition and something bad happened. And when you have listened to intuition and the world opened up. So that's how I approach that. But if we're looking at crafting your signature story, just if you're wanting to share something on a podcast, your story, I would look at, the first thing I would look at is the themes of your life and how those, what I mentioned earlier, and how those themes have created a passion, a burning desire that you now fulfill in the world. Yeah.
So it's so we all have a theme in sometimes, I mean, I don't
Multiple
actually
themes,
know.
I think. Yeah.
Okay, so I thought it was just because I think there are multiple themes. I mean, it depends what period of it's like a movie in a way. So you have a beginning, and then the middle, and then the end.
Yes.
I mean, we'll be gone by then, but so it's it's a very important thing. So I mean, the intuition, because what's the part of the intuition in all of this? In getting your story right for your soul client, and is there a degree of of learning, or what is it all about?
How to get the story. You're not talking about my book right now. You're just talking in general, right? How do we
I'm
craft
just
the
talking
signature story?
in
Yes.
general. How do you craft your your signature? Because as you said at the beginning, to get to your soul client, there's a a big part of intuition as well, and where you really feel the person. So how do you craft this story to really get this intuition to the highest level, if I can express myself that way?
I feel that it's if I'm creating, or if you're creating your signature story, what I would share with you is like, look at your life.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what look, sorry, it's coming back to the themes.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, you know, there's aspects, you know, carving out the highs and lows. Think about a few highs in your life, and why did they happen? What, you know, how did you feel when they happened? Were you just coming into a space where you started to believe in yourself more? And then think about the lows, because people want to see your humanity as well. As you know, Lillian was mentioning earlier, we don't just share the highs, we also share our trials and our tribulations, and that makes us more human. And so when we make ourselves more human, our ideal client can relate to that. Oh my God, she does that as well. I'm not alone. It's not just me. I thought I was stupid. I thought I was going crazy, but this woman does it too. Oh my God, I feel so relieved now. And usually those things are in the past. An unlikely success. What is an unlikely success that you had? Like a surprising success. It's a story in itself. It's not necessarily your signature story, but it's like something that you can use that question and create a social media post about. And in doing so, you're allowing your reader to get to know you in a different way. And so it's really, for me, in order to get these soul aligned clients, it's really about the transparency, that we have nothing to hide in who we are.
And that's a key point, you know, to talk about transparency, because I've seen people write book not being transparent at all. It's just about, you know, trying to match a market or trying to be in a certain tribe, but it's not really about you know, transparency and going there, you know, with your flows and your high and lows. So how do you manage that? Because it can be quite
It's confronting.
confronting. Yes.
Absolutely. And I was just having a conversation today with one of my VIP clients, and she said, look, I don't want to talk about the fact that I was taking drugs and I was having alcohol and I was in this really dark period in my 20s. I don't want anybody to know that. And I said, okay, well, does it serve the story for them to know that, yes or no? You know, and then if it doesn't, then we can leave it out. But if it does, then we don't need to go diving into and unpacking everything. It's more about, okay, all I need to tell people is the headline. I don't need to tell them the whole story, maybe the first paragraph sometimes. And that's how I think as well. I think in titles, headlines, and first paragraph, you know, so we can see how deep do I need to go into the story for the reader to fully identify with the theme. The other thing, I forgot your question now, but I want to just mention this other thing. Where? No, it's gone now. No, it'll come back.
It'll come back. Okay, let's have a break with Lillian, and I think hopefully it will come back. So our story are just great connection points. If we stay honest, it's safe life. So keeping our soul at guard for the greatness of humanity becomes a great treasure to the universe. So again, I think it's aligned with what you were saying, but it has hard to expose the entire point. So I think someday when the person is ready, she will with no shame. And that's really what I was asking, is that, you know, sometimes people are not ready, and
Yeah.
they will come and write, but they will come write something that is not transparent in a way. So and that's when I say, okay, how do you make sure that, you know, knowing their story and knowing that they have this hesitancy to be transparent. How do you help them to come powerfully, into this your book, or or coming out with their story?
I think it's really a question of perspective. Like, what perspective are you writing from? Are you writing for the reader, or are you being indulgent in your story? Nobody wants to read somebody who hasn't really worked through their traumas spilling out their guts. That's not making good writing. It's, however, is an important part of the healing journey. And so sometimes what happens is that, yes, the contributors are coming up with certain moments of their life where they're realizing, oh my God, I haven't fully processed that yet.
Exactly.
So these things can come up. And then what happens? I encourage them, just write it. Let it all flow onto the page. This is your first draft. It doesn't mean it's going to end up in the book, but it needs to come out. Yeah, it needs to come out of us first, so it's on the page, and then we can look, okay, so now that's out of the way. That was my verbal diarrhea. That was me processing my things, so that I can now take myself into the storyteller position, not into the victim mode. Oh my God, all these things happen to me. I'm getting lost in the story, but now I'm becoming the storyteller, and I can carve out the theme. So now, what is the theme of this story that happened to me? And then how is this becomes a universal theme that suddenly everybody can relate to, and you have your unique version in which you've experienced a universal theme. And so now you're speaking to the reader. It's like,
Yeah, because you might have somebody who's still, like you said, haven't really go through the healing process and start to really be negative, and that's not what you want for for the book or for the person. You really want a person that see this as a gift, to the world, and really bring it that way, instead of going for the negativity and not accepting in a way what happened to them. So that's really really important. And I see we have Liliane again. So okay, just like we say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So, but it's not obvious, especially, and I'm gonna ask you the question, Krystal, is have you ever been in a case where you have a client, but you just realize the client is not ready?
It has happened.
Yeah. So what do you do?
So what the beauty is that I'm a coach as well. So what I can help them with, whatever's come up, whatever's unresolved, I can say, would you like us to go into a session and work it through, so that you can release the trauma, you can seize the learnings and the wisdom from whatever happened there, carve out the theme, cut the cords, and really be able to talk about it in a more from a more detached perspective that will serve the reader. So that's one way. The other way is to avoid whatever that theme is that altogether, and just focus on something else, because if they've paid, they're in the book, and then we will make it work, and we will make sure that they look good. And there will always be something where we can do that. And then they just need a little bit more support in the writing.
So you sometimes end up with a group where you give more support to certain author than others, which is something that can actually be very hard, because it depends on the number of author in this case. So let's have another break, and we'll come back for the last part of the show, continuing on crafting our story to attract our soul client. So don't go anywhere. We having a small break, and we will be back later on.
nikambano reniwo anchomono zange wami omwe wonopunga nigambani yoinyo nikambano reniwo anchomono zange wami omwe wonopunga la 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 la.
So it is, we have 3 weeks of, against gender violence. So it was just to make the point again, that's a very important, issue, and we need to stop it. So the awareness is very important. But we are back with Krystal, and we still talking about attracting, our soul clients. And do you have any, process, because that's, we've talked about several things, but do you have something standard, or is it something that doesn't exist, when you're talking about, crafting your story and in a way that will attract, your soul client?
So I don't have a formula, because again, I believe that everybody will have to find that from whatever is authentic to them. But really the questions to answer is, why do you do what you do? Why do you do why do you do what you do? What is it that you stand for in the world? And why is it that you stand for that? Really, it's like this that's really the questions to answer. So yeah.
So those are standard questions, basically, that you ask your clients or your future offer, and then they can give their own perspective on that, and that's how, and you build on that to come write their story or write their paragraph in the book. So that's a lot of work, because I assume that in a way you're coaching them in a way, and then to get out whatever they have inside, and it can be actually quite interesting, I say,
look, some of them are really good, they go away. I give them a chapter outline that has sort of a structure. It says, okay, write about an interesting fact that where you throw us into your life, zoom out and talk about intuition and why it matters to you, or whatever the theme of the book is. It was fearless presence before and collaboration. Share a little bit more about your personal journey and then what you're offering, because it's very much about, the people who are coming into these books, they're there to also share their message and what they're here to do, not just talk about intuition, but if they're a business coach, they want to share how they're using intuition in business and what they offer their clients. So it's that through line. And some of them, they just go and run with my thing, my outline. Others, and I have VIP clients, and I have clients who just go away and do it by themselves. And sometimes the VIP clients, they come against a lot of writer's blocks, or suddenly everything happens in their lives and the sabotage patterns kick in because there's something that they haven't fully claimed yet. And so then we work through that. And I think that I've got this really beautiful connection or combination of skills of being a publisher, but also a coach. And so I love that combination to really then help the clients to move through whatever comes up for them and support them in that. And then when they write it, I read it through certain filters and certain questions, and to then give them feedback to how they can really make it stand, like how this can really position them, how they can really make it powerful. And really the key is with any good writing, if you're writing an article, like if you're listening to this and you don't want to come into a book and you're writing an article, it's about variety. Like in any movie, there are ebbs and flows. Like if we're looking at a James Bond movie, there's trials. Like we don't know if it's going to end up badly. He's nearly going to die, but we know at the end he's going to get the girl. So we kind of we feel it with him, and then he goes up again. He looks like he's winning, and then something else happens again. So it's those twists and turns of that make a good movie, but that also happen in our lives. So if you want to write a signature story or a chapter or an article, look at those highs and lows in your life, and don't gloss over the lows, but because the lows hold our greatest lessons. And that's
So you
what
basically
really,
need a balance, in high and lows, so that it makes it, more, like you say, human, and
yeah,
create this
exactly.
connection that you really want people to have, so that they see you as you are,
Yeah.
and yeah.
And the other thing is also about letting the reader into your thought processes. How did you manage to hit that milestone in your business? Surely it wasn't that easy. There's sometimes we hit rock bottom, and then what did you tell yourself to get back up again? Because that's what's going to be motivational for those, because the reader wants to get inside our heads to learn our tools. If they want to they don't want to step into our footsteps, but they might have a parallel journey because they're our soul client. So they want to know what's going on up here and in our hearts, and how we conquer certain challenges.
Yeah, yeah. And it's important, because it helps, the next person reading it to actually not make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really important for people to share, their challenges, and especially how they manage to overcome all the obstacles that they have that they encounter. So I mean, it's quite an interesting, an interesting area, because, sometimes, like I said, you see people, they just write for the sake of writing. There's not really all the thought process behind all of this. And especially if it's not a spiritual book, people just go at it as if it was just mechanical, and they just copy maybe a book or somebody who's done the same thing, and that's it. But yet, there's a big connection to have with yourself first, and then with the people that you want to reach out. So just to before, I mean, because time is really running out here, just want to ask you if you have really a person, a message, a particular message on this subject that you want the audience to stay with, because I mean, we can stay here for hours, I can see. But is there some particular things or message or anything that you really want the audience to be aware of, and you think it's really important?
Yes. We have facts and we have stories. And we can bring the facts alive by infusing them with our personal stories, with our examples, with our life experience. And that is why, as entrepreneurs, there's no two people doing the same thing, because we come at it with different backgrounds, with different stories. And so if we want to become even more successful as an entrepreneur and step even more into our greatness, these stories that have made us who we are need to come into the facts that we present to the world, because they create connection.
And that's key. And especially, I mean, I'm a person who've actually worked most of my life with men in male dominated, very technical industry. And it's really about black and white, so there's nothing in between. So the intuition sometimes get lost in the process. And we just realize, when I look around, I realize that people who actually make it are the one that actually understand this intuition, the importance of intuition in doing business, and even in technical areas. So they are the one who actually make it to the top and start to manage, because they can see things from a different angles, and they're not stuck into just what they see. They also go inside and understand that it's part of the process, and it's part of the success, part, if they want to be successful in those industry. So thank you so much, Krystal, for spending this hour with us. and helping us, understanding how we can craft our story to attract our soul client. How can people, if they want to continue the conversation, how can they, connect with you? And is there anything that, any information I heard that you have a new book that you want to talk about, or let us know where, when the book is going to come out, or anything, or any event that, you're planning in the
Beautiful.
future?
Thank you. So my website is krystalhille.com. So just my name.com. I am very active, I'm very active on Facebook in that I'm on there a lot. So if anybody wants to send me a Facebook message, I'm very likely to respond there. That's the platform I spend most of my time on. The Intuitive Living book is coming out on the 4th of February, so still a little while to go. In January, I'm starting to announce, I can pre-announce it. I'm going to start opening applications for the next book, which is called Inspired Living. So it's a sequence to Intuitive Living, and that one focuses on thought leaders who share how we can choose joy over fear. So
and that's a key one, especially now with everything that is happening. The last 2 years with the pandemic, and now people coming back, out. How do you get confident and really go over this fear that's been building up the last few years? So just a last round with the audience. So Liliane, so we look, for familiar faces in the mirror. That was for an earlier thing, and we can help over through our stories. Exactly, yeah. And it's always the case. And we have Lufino. She's, I think, tuning in from South Africa as well. And she thank you for an insightful session. So for everybody who have been able to watch live, thank you very much. If you want to continue the conversation, please connect directly with Krystal. I mean, she's always on Facebook, so make sure you connect with her, and get ready to buy the book as well in February. So take a note and put it in your wherever in your calendar. 4th of February, that's when the book is coming out. And for those watching, the replay, please, ask your question, and then I will pass them on to Krystal so that she can reach out and help you if you need her help. So thank you very much. And Liliane again. So thank you, lady. Thank you, Liliane, for being such a supportive audience for the Greatness Engineering Hour show. And we're so happy to have you. And you are in. Okay, you are in. Fantastic. So thank you very much. And thanks a lot again, Krystal, for spending this hour of greatness with us. And we've learned a lot, and I hope that the audience will continue to learn a little bit, because I know that there's more to learn, so they can dig deep with you and get to explore how they can confidently come powerfully out and tell their stories and attract their soul client. Thank you so much. I will be back with the Greatness Engineering Hour show on Friday, and Friday we'll be going to Canada, and we're going to talk about health, and it's going to be very, very interesting. So thank you so much, and I'll see you on Friday back here on the Greatness Engineering Hour show. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Bye.